In the United States, government shutdowns occur when funding legislation required to finance the federal government is not enacted before the next fiscal year begins. In a shutdown, the federal government curtails agency activities and services, ceases non-essential operations, furloughs non-essential workers, and retains only essential employees in departments that protect human life or property. Shutdowns can also disrupt state, territorial, and local levels of government. Funding gaps have led to shutdowns since 1980, when Attorney General Benjamin Civiletti issued a legal opinion requiring it. This opinion was not consistently adhered to through the 1980s, but since 1990, all funding gaps lasting longer than a few hours have led to a shutdown. As of February 2024, 10 funding gaps have led to federal employees being furloughed. The most significant shutdowns include the 35-day shutdown of 2018 to 2019 during the first Donald Trump administration, caused by a dispute over expanding barriers on the U.S.-Mexico border, the 21-day shutdown of 1995 to 1996 during the Bill Clinton administration over opposition to major spending cuts, and the 16-day shutdown in 2013 during the Barack Obama administration caused by a dispute over implementation of the Affordable Care Act, or ACA. The other 7 shutdowns lasted 5 or fewer days. Shutdowns disrupt many different government services and programs. Notably, they close national parks and other public institutions, such as Washington, D.C.'s federally managed museums, reduce government revenue, and reduce economic growth due to the disruption of major services. During the 2013 shutdown, financial rating institution Standard & Poor's said that the shutdown had to date taken $24 billion out of the economy and shaved at least 0.6% off annualized fourth quarter 2013 GDP growth. The most recent federal government shutdown began on October 1st, 2025, and is ongoing. Under the separation of powers created by the United States Constitution, the appropriation and control of government funds for the United States is the sole responsibility of the United States Congress. Congress begins this process through proposing an appropriation bill aimed at determining the levels of spending for each federal department and government program. The finalized version of the bill is then voted upon by both the House of Representatives and the Senate. After it passes both chambers, it proceeds to the President of the United States to sign the bill into law. Government shutdowns tend to occur when there is a disagreement over budget allocations before the existing cycle ends. Such a disagreement can come from the President through vetoing or threatening to veto any finalized appropriation bills they receive, or from one or both chambers of Congress, often from the political party that has control over that chamber. A shutdown can be temporarily avoided through the enactment of a continuing resolution, or CR, which can extend funding for the government for a set period, during which time negotiations can be made to supply an appropriation bill that all involved parties of the political deadlock on spending can agree upon. A CR can be blocked by the same parties if there are issues with the content of the resolution bill that either party has a disagreement upon, in which case a shutdown will inevitably occur if a CR cannot be passed by the House, Senate, or President. Congress may, in rare cases, attempt to override a presidential veto of an appropriation bill or CR. Such an act requires there to be majority support of both chambers. Prior to the 1980s, many federal agencies continued to operate during shutdowns while minimizing all non-essential operations and obligations, believing that Congress did not intend that agencies close down while waiting for the enactment of annual appropriations acts or temporary appropriations. However, Attorney General Benjamin Civiletti issued 2 opinions in 1980 and 1981 that more strictly interpreted the Anti-Deficiency Act in the context of a funding gap, along with its exceptions. The opinion stated that, with some exceptions, the head of an agency could avoid violating the act only by suspending the agency's operations until the enactment of an appropriation. In the absence of appropriations, exceptions would be allowed only when there is some reasonable and articulable connection between the function to be performed and the safety of human life or the protection of property. However, even after the Civiletti opinions, not all funding gaps led to shutdowns. Of the 9 funding gaps between 1980 and 1990, only 4 led to furloughs. Shutdowns of the type experienced by the United States are nearly impossible in other forms of government. Under parliamentary systems used in most European and Asian nations, stalemates within the government are much less likely, as the executive head of government, which is the prime minister, must be aligned with the legislative majority or at least not be opposed by the legislative majority, and may be, though not necessarily always must be, in some countries, a member of the legislature itself, and must maintain the approval of the legislature to remain in power. Confidence and supply. Typically, a legislature is suspended if a budget fails to pass, loss of supply, and the head of government must resign since the budget is a matter of confidence. Then the head of state may either appoint another member of legislature who can garner majority support, or dissolve the legislature and conduct fresh general elections. In other presidential systems, the executive branch typically has the authority to keep the government functioning even without an approved budget.